G'day viewers, my name is Michael and welcome to Single Racer. And in today's video, because I'm primarily a sim racing channel by default, I want to show you how downloading a simple bit of free software will allow you to mimic an Xbox controller with your full sim racing wheel. Now this can go also for other controllers where maybe they don't work correctly. As long as they're USB based, you can take virtually any wheel and act like an Xbox controller in those games that don't have a wheel option in them. So I'm talking games like the RIDE series. I currently have RIDE 4. You see the footage here. Games like Art of Rally and Absolute Drift, or even shooter-based games where they have cars in them, so the classic being GTA 5, where you want to use your wheel to mimic the driving section of those games instead of using a controller. And so now let me show you how to download it, where to find it, and how to set it up so you can mimic all those games, like even the MotoGP series, any game where you get frustrated at using a controller, because I've never owned a console. I have nothing against them, I've just never owned one, so I'm not very good at using a controller, and this way I can use my fully fledged racing steering wheel to mimic an Xbox controller. So let me show you how to download it now. And so now what we need to do is come over to our favorite personal search engine, type in the letters x360ce, which stands for controller emulator, and there's the link there. So that's the page you want, or the website you want. Just click on it, and what you're presented with is essentially 3 versions, but it's basically the previous version, which is these two here, version 3. And that was because it gave you the option or the choice. If you were running an older version of Windows, or you needed a 32-bit version for it to run on older games, maybe you got a dual boot system so you could run the older software and it's still compatible with those older games. The disadvantage was, now I never tested this to prove it, but my understanding is you needed to run the software within the game itself. You had to copy a version within the game in order for the game to recognize it was there and get it to run. The advantage of why this software is now so good with the new version, and this is it over here, version 4, is that you can put it in any directory you like, keep it anywhere you like, and as long as you run it before the game itself, it will recognize the game and just run automatically. So just click on this link, download it to your own downloads folder, or just wherever you normally download your own stuff, and I'll now show you how to unzip it and how to set it up. And now, for simplicity's sake, let's just assume you download all files to your normal C drive downloads directory, but just go to wherever you normally download if you download to a different place, and look for the x360ce zip file here. Now I've pre-created a folder because remember, you can put this in any folder you like, anywhere you like, on any partition you like, and as long as you run it before you start the game, it'll work just fine wherever you put it. That's the advantage of this new version 4. So I'll cut it. I've made a temporary directory here called Single Racer, my channel name, and I'll place it in there. Let's just unzip it. Now I'm using the free 7-zip program, but Windows will give you an unzip free section too by right clicking, and just we'll go extract here. We'll just wait for it to unzip. There it goes. And the first thing I suggest, now you don't have to do this, but it's one of those things where when you run into problems where it doesn't work, it's always a better idea to do this, and that's click on it, right click, open up properties, come to compatibility, and just click on run as administrator here. When you click that, just click OK, and that way you're running it as the proper way it should be run under your computer with you as the administrator. Okay, so the next important step is just before we start the software, we want our wheel or a generic gamepad, whatever we're using to mimic an Xbox controller, we want that connected and ready to go so that the software can see that that's what you want to use to emulate a 360 controller. So connect it up, start the software, we'll start it up. And I just want to say that because I'm using this already and I think it's absolutely terrific, I've got all my settings here, but it won't affect me showing you what to do. And what you'll see is all blank boxes. Now, just on that basis, if you see that, or if you're setting it up and you get a little lost and you go, oh, hang on, was that an Xbox button that I pressed or my wheel button? I can't remember. And you get totally confused and want to completely restart again. Only if you want to completely restart, you can press clear here. But I don't want to do it, of course, because I have my button settings and they're the ones I don't want to lose. So I can still show you what to do. So come over here to the top, press Controller 1 tab, and then you're telling it what you want to use. So you just click on Add, and because you've got it connected, here is my Logitech G29. Simply add selected device, and then what will happen is you'll get this second tab here, Enable One Mapped Device, but most likely it will be unticked. I just can't remember if it was, but I'm almost certain it was unticked, and you're saying, yes, that's what I want to use. Let's tick it to confirm that. Now, another thing that I want to show you is because when I was learning from another video, they tended to gloss over this and I want to cover it in full. But what it is you might get, once you select your G29 or whatever you're using, you might get a little error message in this box and it says issues. And all it's going to say is, you need to load a virtual emulation driver. Now, this is most likely connected to Microsoft or Windows, but if you're not sure, you can come over to the website itself and you come up to this first tab here. And when you click on it, it'll have much more details about how to install it, what to do, and about the gamepad emulation driver. But for the record, I just want to show you what happened in my case, because I clicked on the driver, clicked download, the driver downloaded properly, but there was a little bug where up here, the software itself seemed to get stuck. So my mouse was doing the typical turning, waiting thing, and it was saying not responding. So I couldn't even close it. So just in case you're a beginner, not sure what to do in that case, because you can't close the software, is you just simply press Control, Alt, Delete. It brings up the task manager, you click on that, and then you'll see the software here. So that's this software. You just simply go End Task, because it's just the bug in the software. There's nothing really wrong. It loaded the driver, but you just might not be able to get out of the software. And that happened to me, so I just wanted to make sure that you were aware that that could happen. But then when you restart it, the driver is loaded, it's working perfectly, just a tiny little bug. So now what we'll do is we'll focus on how you set the inputs and what you should do. Okay folks, so now we come to the section where we simply want to input all the buttons that you use on your wheel to mimic what the controller is doing. Now, the software does have an autofill, but I strongly recommend not using it because there's been reports of some strange selections. And for example, if you want to use your own racing wheel, you can't even see the left and right of your steering input. It doesn't seem to show up. So I select or I suggest to do this manually, and the best way you can do this, if I use RIDE 4 as the example, is every game you want to use this in will have its own controller page with all the generic default buttons, and what you could simply do is take a picture of this and refer to it when you're inputting. So for example, RIDE 4 is brilliant because it actually shows you the controller. So all I simply did was on my keyboard I pressed screen print, I opened up Microsoft's free paint, pasted it in, and saved it, so I've got a reference. So what you want to do, for example, is you say, I want my wheel to use the accelerator. What button on the controller is using the accelerator? And it's the standard button here, the right button, right? So all you would do is come to the software, press the button. Sorry, let me do that again. It goes red, basically saying, okay, now choose the input you want, which is my accelerator pedal on my wheel. So just press it now. And the great thing about doing this, if you have a look over here on the right, is you'll see the number change. It goes the full range. The thing about using a keyboard is it's only on off. But here, with this software, I can get the full range of my accelerator to mimic exactly what the wheel does. So now we've done that one, is we come over to the picture and we more or less know that the brake will be the opposite button. So we do the same thing. We just click on the button. We say that's normally the brake. Now it's waiting for the input, and I simply now press the brake on my wheel. And there you go. There's the full input. So if you have a look at the left here, you'll see the range of the full wheel. But how do we do the steering? Well, we simply come over to the pick, and because a normal controller, see, because this is where it gets to become your choice. Now, sorry this is so wordy, but this will be so much easier when you're doing this yourself. But some people control the steering from this pad, or you might not get a choice in the game you're using. So if it's this pad here, you have also left, right, up and down, and even when you press the button, you'll have a separate clicker in the middle. And the software indicates that. So all we decide is, okay, we want to steer with the wheel, the steering left and right, which will be the left and right sides here. So that's what we would do. So here's left, right, but also a different button for top and bottom, and even a different button in the center. But because we want the steering, we want left to right. Now, the mistake I made was I thought I had to add it in both sides. In other words, click this one and then click this one, but it's counterintuitive or works against each other. You only need to press one. So you can either press left or right. So we'll do that. There, it's waiting for the input of my wheel. So here, check out this box around here, and you'll see now as I turn my wheel, I turn it all the way to the left, go to the full range till it hits the end. Now go all the way to the right, and that's how you get your full range, left and right, and then recenter it. And there's your wheel. But you can do this on either the left or right side, but you only do it the once, and that's all you need to do. So every other input is your own selection. So let's say, for example, you owned a button box, and it was the button box that gave you the camera choices, you know, the different camera angles. You just find out on the controller picture what the default button is. Say it was A here. You would come over here, click A, and then click the button that you normally use when you're racing in Assetto Corsa or Automobilista 2, and press that button. And this way you will now have your wheel set up in full familiarity with what you normally use in racing games, only you're mimicking this on the Xbox controller. And when all that is done, you just simply come over here and press save all, and then it's all done, ready to go in game. And so now, even though we're technically finished and the software will work in any game of our choosing, I just want to go over 2 or 3 extra options that might make it better overall as far as getting the software to run at its maximum. And the first thing is because all the games that I own use a generic controller setting. In other words, the typical accelerate on the right button, the brake on the left, and the steering on the thumb pad. But let's pretend that there was a game that used different alternate or weird settings. Say for instance the accelerator was the bottom green button here. All you needed to do is come over and go add game. Let's say it was Art of Rally as the example. You would go to wherever you've installed your Art of Rally, click on its exe, go open, and then you could do a custom separate setting just for that one-off game that was different to all the other generic games that use, you know, a similar format. I've had no need to change the buttons because all my games use the same thing. So there's the option if you did ever strike a game that used or needed to use different button settings. The other thing is if you want to set up an icon, if you're not sure how to do that, a desktop shortcut icon, just right click to wherever you've put the actual x360ce software, right click it, go to send to, and click on desktop create shortcut. And when you do that, like I have, you can then just from your desktop, if you want to, click on the button to open up the software automatically. And this is very, very important because the software needs to be running before you run the game in order to change your sim racing wheel into the controller settings. And let me show you that that actually works by coming over here to control panel. We go to devices, printers, and if we select my G29, we'll go right click the game controller thing, and here you'll actually see I've got two inputs. I've got the Logitech G29 but also an Xbox controller, and that's because I got the software loaded and running. If I close the software and I forget to load it, your wheel won't be recognized as a controller in the game of choice. So by creating the icon and just clicking on it easily, you'll now find that it'll pop up again as a 360 controller. It'll just take a second. There it goes. And so you know the software, that's another way to tell that the software is working correctly and ready to go. So now there's one final thing, because I'm sure in all those infomercials that you see on TV, they say, but wait, there's more, because there is one more crucial setting. So let me tell you about that now. And so the final and crucial bit of missing information, at least for me, was because I tried all these settings up to this point, started the game I wanted to use it in, which was RIDE 4, a motorbike simulation, and it felt shocking. The bike from side to side was awful. And I stopped using the software. In fact, I'd already deleted it. But then I remembered just through sheer fluke that I need to make a change for a game called Wreckfest on my normal sim racing wheel. So if I needed to make that change, could it now work in this software and make the RIDE 4 feel a lot better? And what it has to do with is that the Logitech gaming software, by default, if I just show you here, comes with the 900 degrees of rotation. That's one of its selling points. But in RIDE 4, it made the bike so sloppy and all over the place. Let me show you a bit of footage of what it looks like here. And so what I'm hoping you might have seen from that game footage was how woeful or how inaccurate when you're trying to turn from side to side, which is crucial in a bike sim. It just felt shocking. And I realized that it was because if you have a look at the actual thumb pad of a controller, it's such a limited throw, you know, there's not much movement. So 900 degrees was just awful in trying to get those small adjustments when you got so much in the wheel itself. So the answer was simple, by going here and setting it to, and I'll give you a range now, I can't do the slider because the software has taken over control, but it's between 160 and 200 based on the power of the bike. And between those two settings, you had so much more finite control and could really smoothly hit the apexes in this bike sim, and I'm sure other games that you give it a try in. So I hope that was helpful. I hope you find the software useful, and I'll do my normal sign out now. So this is Michael signing out for Single Racer. I'll catch you next time. I hope you enjoy the software. See you later.